Powered by Red Media in partnership with TSN, Season 6 of the Rain Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Tim Hortons. Hey, satisfy your craving for cozy winter comfort with a bit of a fun twist. New hot and cold white chocolate pistachio-flavored beverages have arrived at Tim's. All new to the menu, including the white chocolate pistachio latte, white chocolate pistachio iced latte, white chocolate pistachio ice cap, and the white chocolate pistachio hot chocolate. A delicious way to stay cozy at Tim's. Where do you want to start? We've got so much going on.
I'll tell you where I want to start.
Okay,
I'll tell you
go
where
ahead.
I want to start.
You start. Where do you want to go?
I think there should be a banishment of time zones.
You're in the Pacific and I'm in the East, so there's two more. Which one don't you like?
I get them confused. So
okay,
when Rashog, who finally contributed to the podcast and helped set up an interview, he put the time of the interview in Mountain Time. I've been sitting in this chair for 40 minutes because I got the time zones confused. So I'm all for a banishment of all but East and West, only because it's only been 25 years that I've been traveling around like this, and I still can't get them straight.
In fairness, though, we normally go Eastern time zone. We do, just to keep it easy. And for whatever reason, this one got a little... but it's because of our guest. Zach Hyman is joining us on the podcast. Mountain time.
Yeah,
so that's
but that's where like I just didn't catch up to the time zone, and I'm and so that's where I'd like to start today.
Well, okay. I want to start with Alex Ovechkin, and we'll get to headlines, and we'll take it back into the mountain zone in the Edmonton Oilers in just a minute here. But empty net goal for Ovechkin on Thursday night, so that's 875. He's now 20 shy of breaking Wayne Gretzky's record. Scored from the defensive zone, which prompted Spencer Carberry, his coach in the 3-0 win over the Seattle Kraken, to say that was a tough empty netter. I mean, is that what it's come to now? We're going to have to qualify, how many empty netters Ovechkin gets to break the record, and whether they were difficult tap-ins or he had to work on that one. Is that what it's coming down to here?
I guess it could, but I think Ovi's got 61 empty netters. I might have that number wrong. And Gretzky had 60 in his career. Like, their numbers are really incredibly similar. It's amazing. As far as ranking empty netters, I did think two things. One, that was kind of a high degree of difficulty empty netter, right? He made a good play on the boards. And the second part is some guys just don't miss the net. Like, I've got this old saying, the net's been in the same place for 150 years. Like, you shouldn't miss it as often as some people do. But he just turned and and it's not a joke, because if it was easier, more guys would do it. But he just does not miss the net. Like, his spidey senses or his awareness of where the net is it's one little tiny piece of what makes him who he is. But man, he turned around and zinged it in the empty net. Now, 30 years ago, or when I was playing, whatever, it was frowned upon to shoot from your own end at the empty net. Now guys are slinging it from behind their own net, and they probably hit it. They're like, they probably hit it more than they miss, and if they don't, they're like, we'll take our chance on the draw, but the game's over if you hit the net. And
it's funny you say that, because Ron Francis said the same thing to me a week or two ago when I asked him about not just empty net goals, but points with the net empty, because it definitely is impacting the scoring race. It just is, right? And he said exactly what you just said. He said, back in my day, you wouldn't shoot from anywhere on an empty net. Is the point you're making? You'd be sure that you made that play.
Well, when we're comparing records across decades, like, what about goalie wins? Like, look at some of the all-time greats, and they had 100 ties. Like, those some of them would have been wins, right? But the game's evolved and changed, and in the midst of it all, you got to kind of maybe take into consideration what difference there is. But in the scoring race now, everybody's playing with the same rules. The difference is I still would have never had any empty netters because I would have never been out there. But I can tell you, I would have been shooting it from my end for sure. Why not?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you? All right, let's get into the Tim Hortons headlines. And of course, undoubtedly, we have to start with the rematch. And that's how this game is always going to be remembered. The rematch between the Vancouver Canucks and the Edmonton Oilers. And I don't know, Ray, did you know that Connor Garland was enemy number 1 going into that game against the Oil last night? Did you feel it?
Yeah.
Was it palpable? Did you just have this eager anticipation for what you were going to see?
I had to laugh when I heard Rick Tocchet's statement. He's like, it was a holding penalty. Like the guy you're pissed off at got cross-checked in the head. It's almost like it. There is very few real games of tension in the regular season, right? You're just plowing along, and so if something can stir the building up, some people find it, and maybe it becomes a thing. But I love this quote. Garland's thing. He's like, "I do not care."
Don't care
because in reality, like he took a holding penalty, and the rest of it was all nonsense. And the guys got their 3 games, and it seemed like even the players playing were like, "Oh, geez, can we just like?" There's nothing to add. Like there was nothing to add. The game was over, and the fact of the matter is the Oilers are a really good team and the Canucks aren't right now. And so like there was no rivalry to be had in the game. I mean, I don't know. They booed him a few times, and I guess that was it, right? It was 5-0. It's pretty hard to get a rivalry out of that.
No, but there were sidebar stories, right? And maybe it's not even fair to call Corey Perry and the antics, the gamesmanship, just vintage message sending by Corey Perry in this one. I mean, he went to the Stampede Wrestling playbook when he dropped Quinn Hughes on his noggin,
right?
in that one. Just that play in general. Any concern with the lack of response from the Vancouver Canucks? No call on the play, or just Corey Perry doing what Corey Perry does in a game where he knew there'd be just a little bit more juice in it?
Well, he doesn't miss, right? Like when there's a chance to aggravate Corey Perry, that he just does not miss. I'm trying to think of who the guy was. It might have been Marchand, which makes it even funnier. But I was doing a game, and Perry at a timeout was standing. He always stands right at the red line, and he's got a water bottle this time, and he's filling up somebody's glove with water. Like it had nothing to do with anything except what a pain in the ass he was being, right? Like, but he's got 430 goals. Like the guy can play. So, So in the moment when he dumps Hughes, I'm looking. I don't have in my head all 5 guys on the ice, but Vinny Desharnais was out there. He's the guy that has to respond. You can't look at like Pettersson was out there. Like, what's he going to do? No. Right? Like you can't. The big boys are the ones that have to respond. Teddy Bluger tried to fight him later, and Friedman went at him at some point. And by that point, though, Perry's like, nah, beat it. Like that's just the way he does his thing. And it's why he's hated in 31 cities and loved in the city that he's playing in.
Yeah. Like last of a dying breed, right? Like he's just really last of a dying breed.
There's just not many like him. And he does it on purpose. He knows when to do it. Maybe the biggest fallacy of the whole thing was when he said that you got to protect the stars, and then the next game he dumps Hughes. Like stop it. Yeah, but I mean, stop it. Like, of all the guys that should be making a comment about that, he's probably not the guy.
Yeah, and he almost ended John Tavares' career. Now, granted, it was more accidental than it was on purpose, but anything that involves Corey Perry does have that believability of being accidentally on purpose, right?
I can't tell you.
Just the edge he plays with.
Drake's, I can't tell you how many times I've been doing a game of his, and I've done like way over 100 games that he's been in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm standing there, and there's always something to be said to the other bench, which of course I like, because that's like, I was a chirpy guy. I'm entertained by that. But when the play goes up the ice and there's a whistle blown behind the play, like, I'm telling you, I don't have to look, and I know it's Perry lying on the goalie. Like, it is. I just, as I swing my head, he's always getting up and he's just escaping. And you're like, oh, geez, I got to wait for the highlight because the play was up the ice. But you see the highlight and you're like, oh, yeah, well, there, same thing. So in the midst of that, no Connor McDavid. I'm not sure if people have realized Leon Draisaitl's really good and like amazing. And all we got to do, we got to start getting the word out. Come on the show, agree to come on the show.
Oh, automatic.
And you will score. And Zach Hyman busted his slump and got rid of that ridiculous bubble he's been toting around and got 2 goals yesterday. The Oilers they're playing great. They've been the best team for 2 months in the league, and it's they're a good team.
I'm not going to lie. When he scored the first goal, there was a small fist. There was just a little nice. And it was just pure selfishness on behalf of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, because I was like, all right, if this game goes sideways beforehand, there's a chance. I mean, Zach, he's a character dude. He's not going to leave us high and dry, but you never know. Stuff happens in a game,
or he comes on grumpy. Or he's grumpy.
Which is hard for him because he's never seemingly grumpy.
But now he's got 2 goals in his pocket, so we're looking forward to getting them now.
We'll have some fun, let's go to the Vancouver Canucks here. And as you acknowledged, they're not playing well at all. Rick Tocchet postgame, he took issue with a few things. One was lack of discipline. Fact that they gave the Oilers at least a couple of freebies, to get that game going. They're chasing. And he literally said he took, kind of blame for some of it and said, look, I've got to do a better job of finding a way to get these guys more engaged and wound up, because right now there just aren't enough men pulling on the rope. That's basically what he outlined. Right. So what does that tell you about the state of the team? And then the fact that he acknowledged Saturday's game against the Washington Capitals essentially as a must win.
Okay, so I'm going to compare them to the New York Rangers. In the month of December, the Rangers went 3-10. They had one stretch where they were 0-7-1, like a disaster. Yep. Couldn't keep the puck out of their net, couldn't score. They looked like they'd all been just been slapped before the game started, just down and disheartened, and that's how they played. And Peter Laviolette, who's a really good coach, had no answers, none. And we did a game, they were in Washington, and it was kind of a spirited loss. And we did the game, and it was January 2nd. Mm-hmm. And they played pretty good, but they just didn't win, right? It was one of those ones. Since then, they're number 1 in the league in points. They've scored 43 goals. There's no correlation between, why did it change? So they traded Jacob Trouba. Remember all that stuff around Chris Kreider?
Yeah.
Where did that go? Where did that go? It got quiet. Why? Because they've started to win. They made a couple of changes. They brought in, is Earl Vakanainen a game changer? Is Will Borgen a game changer? No, but they're two different defensemen. They've started to score again. Oh, you know what else has happened? Igor Shesterkin's back. And
he's back, yeah.
He is on it again. And when he is, a difference maker. So look at the Canucks. They're stumbling around. They're disheartened. They don't score. And they don't keep the puck out of their net. And you watch Thatcher Demko, and as I said on Vancouver radio yesterday, he's kind of playing like he's in November, but the league's is in January. He's behind. Look at the Kapanen goal last night. It's a long wrist shot. Well, not long. It's a 25, 30-foot wrist shot. Hit that rebound, normally with Demko, goes into the right corner. He deflected it right back into Kapanen. He never does that. That's a goalie that's just, he's not there. Mm-hmm. And so all these things add up to the game starts, you've got great energy internally yourself, and then they drop the puck. And it's almost like you play waiting for something bad to happen. Like on Hyman's first goal yesterday, Draisaitl makes a backhand pass. I don't know who's coming through the middle of the ice. The pass skips over his stick. Mm-hmm. Roenick's stepping up to play that guy. It goes all the way across, and Hyman gets a breakaway. Like, when you're playing lousy, that stuff happens, and then you just sag. There's no fight. They gave up 2 goals in 20 seconds. It's 3-0. Everybody could have gone home. Yeah. And so that's where I see them at now. And if they don't play well against Washington, they're going to get their lunch handed to them at home. Washington is good. They're a very, very good team. They're 9-0-3 in their last 12. That's the longest point streak of anybody in the league. And Logan Thompson's in goal. I don't even remember the last time he lost, like never. He's got 2 losses this year.
All he's doing is earning money. That's all he's doing.
Is he ever. Charlie Lindgren comes back last night and gets a shutout. But if you're looking at the Vezina, it's Hellebuck and Thompson. Like those are the 2 guys right now. He's had an amazing year.
Speaking of goaltending, let's shift over to the New Jersey Devils, and a tough one now for the Devils, right? Because Jacob Markstrom, maybe not as bad as feared, but it's still a sprained MCL, as the Devils have disclosed. Good on the New Jersey Devils. I mean, they give us the details. Sprained MCL, no surgery required, but he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. So that puts you right up against the Four Nations. I mean, all kidding aside, I don't even know if it's fair to call it a long shot. He's not going to the Four Nations.
No.
They need him to be healthy. But how much strain does that put now on the New Jersey Devils? They continue to play well, I mean, in his absence. So, but 4 to 6 weeks is still an extended period of time.
So they'll get, like, they don't get the relief of the Four Nations for rehab, right? Like, it's like if it was right in front of you'd get a free week of rehab where nobody's playing. So now this puts great heat on Jake Allen. You got to be careful because the Devils are in they're not in a precarious spot, but they got 60 points and everybody else battling away. They're third in their division. Everybody else has got 53, 52 points right in there. Well, if Allen struggles, who do you have next? Nico Dawes, I guess. Mm-hmm. Right? So your goaltending becomes even more critical because A, you don't have the depth that you did before Markstrom got hurt, but B, they're not scoring right now. Mm-hmm. So that puts even more pressure on Allen. Now, Tommy Fitzgerald for 2 years had looked around to try and solve the goaltending, and this is why you have 2 guys, right?
Yeah.
So this is it's a big opportunity for Allen, but there's a lot of pressure that sits with it.
Another injury to Winnipeg's Adam Lowry, captain of the Jets. I mean, they're describing it week to week, a weird one too, right? Because it just didn't seem to be an obvious play in the game. There was one exchange in the corner where people are wondering whether that was it or not. Anyway, last week while I was in Winnipeg, the sense that I got was even with Nemestikov hurt at the time, they like the look of Lowry in the 2-hole, right? So Nemestikov comes back, and you've got those 2 guys in the 2 and the 3 spot. Maybe that gives Cheveldayoff more flexibility just to get the best available, affordable forward out there. Right. So again, without knowing the full extent of the Lowry injury, other than week to week, there's no panic in Winnipeg, but would you be encouraged if you're Chevy to go, all right, well, it didn't feel like 3-4 days ago that we needed to really pay attention to center ice, but now maybe we do need to pay attention to what we need up the middle, even in a depth perspective.
Myself, there's 3 positions you've got to be really nervous about depth-wise: center, a D, and a goalie. that you have to cover depth wise. Wingers you can find, right?
Yeah.
Unless he's the best player on your team and you're like, oh boy, we just lost our best player. And then nobody's got depth to cover that. I would be nervous only because they've had a little glimpse of what happens when one of those centers is hurt. Because you mentioned first it was Nemestikov, now it's Lowry. And it would be nice if one of those guys were to get nicked in a playoff round or near the playoffs, that you would have somebody you're comfortable with getting into the middle to tide you over till they're back. You can never have perfect depth. It's never going to happen. But it would make me think, probably we do have to add a center to be there to play. Maybe you get somewhat of an upgrade anyway. But Lowry's too critical to not replace. Yeah. And I think you just have to guard against it, Dregs. In case, there's certain times for certain teams that you got to take you got to go for it in two. Like you can't be laying up. And the Jets are one of the league's best teams, and I feel like this is a year they should think about it.
Yeah, well, and as Pierre LeBrun reported on Insider Trading, it's not going to be Jonathan Toews, at least not this season, right? I mean, I'm sure Toews has interest in Winnipeg, interest in other clubs, but it sure sounds like his focus is on next year. Not that anyone really expected Toews to dive right back into hockey this year, but he needs the time, and we'll make a call.
So two guys that the story bounces around a little bit were Toews and Gabe Landeskog. And, Landeskog's skating. I don't even really know how much Toews is doing. But I find it really difficult. I really find it difficult, Dregs, to believe that after 2 years off, that Gabe Landeskog is going to be anywhere near what he used to be. Like, it would take a remarkable amount of time, I think, to even approach what you could be. Like 2 years. Like, man, that's a hell of a long time, man.
All right, those are your headlines. Thank you to Tim Hortons.
Tim's new white chocolate pistachio latte is here to mix up your day. Freshly ground espresso beans topped with Belgian white chocolate curls with a delicious pistachio flavor. Order the hot or iced white chocolate pistachio lattes on the Tim's app today.
It's time for Tim's.
All right, it's great to be joined on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast by Zach Hyman of the Edmonton Oilers, and a lot to cover with you, Zach, and the Oilers in general. But let's start with last night's game against the Vancouver Canucks. A big win for the Edmonton Oilers, big night for you, 2 goals and the assist. What's the emotion like going into a game like that, where at least from a fan or a media standpoint, it felt like there was a little bit more juice going into that one? Do you guys as players feed off that, and is that real?
To an extent, I thought it was pretty blown out of proportion, to be honest. Like, we've had bigger incidents. It was more the suspension, I think, that everybody was I guess talking about. We thought it was a little too long, but the actual incident, I mean, it happens in hockey. But we were just worried about winning a game, and we played against those guys a lot, and obviously having a full playoff series against them, which was pretty intense. So the game, otherwise, obviously really hyped up, but we just wanted to go out there.
You finally got that bubble off, and which I did the game in Colorado. I guess it was maybe 3 games ago for you guys now, and there was 4 or 5 pucks right around the front of the net that you don't normally miss, and it's like, do you remember? There was like rebounds sitting right there, and you couldn't. So tell us about wearing that thing and finally getting it off, and the difference for you.
Yeah, I think in that game I had like 7 shots from within 3 feet.
Yes, you did.
Didn't score, but anyhow, it's an adjustment for sure. It's hotter in there. When you look down, I think that's the biggest thing, is just being able to track the puck when it comes in between your feet, and somebody who stands in the paint who doesn't necessarily get the puck on your tape at all times when you're in the paint. You got to find it really quickly, and at times it's hard to locate it when you look down and you see kind of the bar, the bottom of the bubble. So playing without it, it's more natural. It's way easier to breathe, I would say too. It doesn't fog up as much. I found myself at times taking it off pretty much after every shift. I take the bubble off, give it to our trainer, and I think they're getting pretty annoyed too after every shift. But
Right.
it was nice to get it off and feel normal.
I did laugh. You were just getting close to taking it off, and you said one of the kids smacked you in the nose. And you may not be able to tell, but this has been a repaired nose. Like that, eventually, this is what the doctor came up with. I'm like, geez, thanks, buddy. But I remember my kid whacking me in the nose, and like tears coming to my. He was like 3, and I laughed when I heard that. I'm assuming same thing.
Oh yeah. The hardest is the diaper change. Like I got a 4-year-old, 2-year-old, and then the 4 months. So the 4-year-old's pretty good. The 2-year-old's the one that's trouble, or your diaper changing, he's just flailing, feet are everywhere, throwing punches. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, if I get hit here once, I'm gonna cry. Like just like you said, like it's so sensitive. So it was and then near the end I got hit and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe another week with the bubble. So
right. So had to feel good to get one last night. You get out early in the game, you get behind the defense, and now you're in, and it doesn't matter, right? If it's 2 games or 6 games, it's so good, isn't it? When you finally punch through again.
Oh yeah, it's always fun to score, obviously, and put one in, and yeah, it's one of the best feelings.
Mm-hmm.
4th in the NHL right now, the Edmonton Oilers. Abe, what keeps you in the moment when you're 30 plus games out from the end of the regular season? And I mean, historically, no, it's a marathon. It's not a race in the sense that it's a sprint here. But is it lessons learned? What is it that keeps this team as motivated as you are or appear to be right now?
Yeah, it's a long season, obviously. And this typically is kind of the time where it's the midseason grind, games 40, 50, or you're in January, it's cold outside, and you realize you still got a ton of games left before the playoffs. But I think for us, you realize how important it is to put yourself in a good position and to have home ice, as long as you can. I think is in the playoffs is something that's really, really important. Having lost a game 7 on the road in the finals, like if that game's on home ice, maybe it's different, right? So I think for us, realizing how important every win is in the standings, everything's tight. I mean, it helps that we have teams around us that are really good, and we're trying to push to win our division. So and you want to play your best hockey. You never want to be kind of sleeping and going into the playoffs being asleep. So we're just trying to get better every day.
So do you can you still take the game 7 like gut feel, or is that kind of fade away? Or does it still, is that all just what you're talking about? That's what drives you? Because it's so far away in the past, but it's so far away in the future too. Like it's got to be hard to still be here, right?
Yeah, it's hard for sure. I mean, it was hard at the beginning of the year. You're going from the most intense game ever to you're starting at the bottom of the mountain again, right? And you got to go through this 100 and whatever game grind. I think we played over 100 games last year, and you're at the start, and you're like, wow, I got 100 games to get back to where we were. So yeah, that's just mentally, I think hard. I think maybe that's why we got off to a little bit of a slower start, but then you realize that every year is a new year, and you got to get back at it. And only way you can get back is by playing your best every night. And every team's good. Every team gets better. So you can't just walk into games thinking you're going to win. So you have to really show up. And I think we're starting to do that.
You've already talked about your family. You're a busy dad. And look, let's assume there's no injury. The call doesn't come. What are your plans for the Four Nations break?
Yeah, it's going to be lots of family time. I'm going back home to Toronto. I got the 3 boys. We just had one in September.
Yep.
My brother Spence had a baby in August. So
Awesome.
And then my sister-in-law also just had a baby. So we have a lot of babies in the family. Everybody wants to see the kids, and it'll give me an opportunity to go visit Brantford, obviously, which we just purchased the OHL club, which I'll be able to go see the guys there, see it firsthand, be able to practice them. So I'm really excited.
So when you, sorry, my volume clicked out because my wife called and freaking, that's just what happened, right? And I'm such a technological genius, I couldn't figure out how to do both. So I assume you were talking about your junior team, right?
Yeah, Brantford.
I
Yeah,
mentioned it.
Yeah. So when you get into that, like, how much are you involved in, like, oh, hey, let's go do this? Or does that get brought to you a little bit later?
Yeah. Well, the process I was really involved in, obviously. I'm fortunate that my brother Spence is there full time. He's running the operation for us. So to have somebody that I trust and that I talk to every day, regardless of if it's about hockey, is something that is extremely important to me. And it's great for our relationship. Now we just talk about the Bulldogs all the time, talk about players, and gives me a different perspective. To being a player, being on the other end of it. So that's awesome. And yeah.
Okay. So what do you,
go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, so, sorry, I was going to say, what do you know now that you didn't know before you became an owner? Like, because when we're players, we don't have a clue about anything, right? Except the next day. So like, what have you already learned? That's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, for like, just talking with the GM, like when you're going through a trade deadline, like we're kind of in the process of the sale was happening before that, but we were able to kind of just chat a little bit and just talk through, what are the team goals for this year? How does, if you do one thing, how does it affect next year or the years after, and just evaluating the roster. And for me, you look at young players and I started to watch the games, and you become a little bit attached to guys. You're like, oh, they don't know you at all, but like I'm watching them. I'm like, oh, I really like this guy. This guy could be really good in a couple of years. And then, so I think you realize that, ownership or management or coaching, like they're just people too. And they have their own personal opinions on players, and you could be right or you could be wrong. And as a player, just go out there and play. And every situation you're in is probably different because you have different people evaluating you with different opinions. And it's a unique position for me to be in now on the other side.
Okay, so when you're at practice and somebody breaks a stick, do you now think of it differently? Like when they snap one over the board.
Hey, that's a $325 twig. What are you doing?
It's funny. I was going through. I got the full number sheet of kind of our revenue and probably one of the biggest costs are our equipment, so sticks, etc. So I get a bigger appreciation for sure when I'm using a brand new stick every game. I'm like, oh boy, that's a lot of money.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, this is years down the road, Zach, but I mean, do you see yourself morphing into a role as a general manager, that sort of thing? Or do you think you're always going to be prefer to be involved, actively involved, but maybe in the upper offices and less so hands-on?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just taking it all in, I guess. Like I think the best job in the world, I'm sure Ray can attest to, is being a player, and there's nothing like that. So as long as I can be a player and be on the ice, that'll be my job. Whenever that finishes, because I mean, Father Time comes for all. I'm sure I will remain in the game in some capacity. And I'm already in it, I guess, on the other side of things now. So I'll get a little taste as to what I like as I'm still a player, which is unique.
Now, does it give you a break? Like when you talk to your brother and you're talking about the team, like is it like some guys have other hobbies, and I mean this is clearly more than a hobby, but like does it give you a break? Like you can refresh your brain a bit and just think about that and not about your job?
Yeah, 1,000%. I've always been, even obviously before this, like an advocate of doing things outside of hockey. It's so important. Like the life we live is a roller coaster. It's up and down. Seasons are up and down. Sometimes you win 5 games in a row. Other times you lose a couple. same thing from a player standpoint with regards to scoring goals or getting points and how that affects your mood, etc. Like everybody's human, right? And the season is a roller coaster. So having outlets to have joy in other areas of your life, family, hobbies, passions is so important to be well-rounded.
Awesome. All right, we'll leave you with this. Give the fans here a front row seat, because Ray and I talk about this all the time, how competitive Draisaitl and Connor McDavid are. I mean, they want to be the best, period. And you're right there. You're in the middle of it. So just how competitive are these two guys in their quest to be the best?
I mean, hard to describe without seeing, right? I think from afar, before I got to the team, you can have an appreciation for how skilled they are and how good of a players they are. But seeing it firsthand, you see the amount of work that goes in. Like everybody looks at Connor and Leon and they're like, wow, these guys have God-given talents. Obviously very different talents and very unique talents, but it's not just the talents that they're given, it's the work that they put in to develop themselves and to keep themselves at the highest level. And I think both those guys have pretty much won every individual award, so they are less concerned about those things and really just concerned about the team and winning. And I think it's the ultimate goal for all of us, having been so close and having that pace. So they're driven to get us back, and both those guys lead the team as you all witness every night.
Terrific stuff. Well, we'll leave it there. Thanks for taking the time to do this. All the best to you, to the Oilers, and of course, the Bulldogs. Thanks, Zach.
Love it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Zach.
All right, Ray, thanks to Zach Hyman and the Edmonton Oilers for helping us out today. And as we talked about going into the interview, timely, yes, thanks to Zach for the 3-point effort in the win over the Vancouver Canucks. But, man, you really get a vibe from him, don't you, when you talk to him, that, of course, he's a tremendous hockey player and wants nothing more than to win and clearly win a Stanley Cup. But there's a lot more in his world. Priority one is family, but now with his extended family, his brother, they buy the Brantford Bulldogs of the Ontario Hockey League. Like, you think of the career beyond playing for Zach Hyman, the sky's the limit, literally. And in all capacities, there's just endless possibilities for him. There
are, I was happy, I'll say, but they said, I'll be in the game when I retire. And I'm like, I believe there's great contributions from Zach to the game, to the structure of the game, perhaps, when he retires. Like there's something different about him, and you can hear it in the way that he talks. There's a lot of minor hockey discussion and minor sport discussion about balance in life. And I thought the part where he's talking about that, like he's at the highest level, and he's talking about always being an advocate for doing something else. And, here he is doing it at this level. I just thought his thought process through just about everything is much deeper than you might get from other guys. He was, as always, a great interview, and thanks for his time. And man, it was great to chat with him. And I did get a laugh that he's getting a close look at the stick budget. And we all know that's a lot more than we ever think about.
I don't know. As I'm looking at the two of you guys side by side, for whatever reason, like a thought bubble popped in, and it's a character of you and then Hyman. And the first thing I think of is that.
Yeah. Thanks.
And what that would look like. Well, come on. I mean, you got a rough and tumble career. You earned that. Zach is earning what's going on there, but 5-10 years from now, he's going to look different.
I wonder if he really understood when I said that.
No, I don't think he did.
That this is a surgery that the doctor fixed my nose. This is what he came up with. Like, this is better than it was. Like, can you imagine? Like, it was ridiculous. I assume he was a nose doctor. I mean, he was a doctor. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe a Hyundai in that thing. Holy smokes!
Yeah, I tell you, I'm not out of air. I'm not out of air very often. Let me tell you.
Hey, we fooled them again. 2 very good podcasts this week. So what's the weekend looking like?
Canucks and Capitals tomorrow, and then
Yeah.
I'm gone for a week. I'm gone all next week. I got. I'm going to take a look here. Oh, Dallas at Vegas next Tuesday, and then I'm going to see Macklin Celebrini live for the first time, which I'm looking forward to. On Thursday, see his goal last night.
Sure, tremendous.
18 years old. Are you kidding me? And then we have our first ABC game of our regular schedule. We're in Boston. The Rangers are there on Saturday. So busy week.
Nice.
But
busy
just going to enjoy the weekend. A little soccer, good weather, and cold but good. But what about you? Are you going ice fishing anywhere?
No. Although it's cold enough here. Yeah, it's cold enough here in Ontario. There's likely ice fishing going on around me. I don't have to travel that far. But you know what? 3 days of ice fishing is good. I'm set. I'm ready for the real thing in the summer now.
And right, so buddy. You don't have, but nothing to pop up this weekend. Just hanging out.
No, quiet. Just
good for you.
Nice and quiet.
Enjoy. Right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Hope you have a great weekend.
You bet. Safe travels to you, Ray, and thanks to our sponsors who continue to support Ray and Dregs and make this lovely podcast possible. Our title sponsor, Tim Hortons, and also thank you to Acon. Until next time, early next week, stay safe, everybody.